Hello, my friends. Welcome to today's episode of Stand Up, where each and every day I find the best, smartest people I can to talk about the issues that impact you, your family, your community, your country, and your planet the most. Joining me today, starting at about 35 minutes into today's show, I've got our friend Bill B in D.C., Bill Boyle. That's right, I've been kicking off the week with him for almost a month now, certainly as it relates to everything that's happening around the world with our wars, but also everything else. Always love talking to Bill. He's one of our favorite guests and friends, and I think you're going to love today's conversation. We covered a lot, including questions around people's questions around the attempted assassination of then candidate Trump in July of 24, was it? Anyway, we didn't spend much time on that, but neither Bill or I think there's a conspiracy there. Of course, there are always questions, but you can jump to that and everything else if you want, but I hope that you'll stay for the news and clips. Should be a busy week here on Stand Up of posting. I think I'll probably talked to several guests, mostly women, because last week I noticed was a lot of guys. But if you tune in around 10:30 Eastern this morning, I'll be talking for the first time on Stand Up to Dr. Andrea Jones-Roy, and she's real smart. I was on the panel with her and John Fugelsang. You may have heard if you listened to the show I posted on Saturday. It was the hour on Dino Bidala's show. And today at 10:30 a.m. East, she'll join me for the first time on Substack and YouTube, so subscribe there. And I can't do any of it if you don't subscribe with a paid subscription over at Patreon or Substack, patreon.com/Pete Dominick or at Pete Dominick on Substack. All right, coming up, your clips on the Clip Show. But first, let's head to headlines. Here's what I've gathered for you from the weekend, starting probably back on Friday. But most importantly, what the hell is happening with the war in Iran, with these potential negotiations, with there being a apparent strike on an Iranian boat by a U.S. military boat. A lot of questions. The reporting is confusing, including multiple conflicting reports throughout the day yesterday about a second round of peace talks in Pakistan on Tuesday, which is by the way, supposed to be the deadline that our commander-in-chief set. And so I guess I'm warning myself and you that this week could be another right up to the brink of ending a civilization with all of those threats week. So brace yourself. But 2 days after he declared victory and announced with 13 posts on Truth Social an hour that the Strait of Hormuz was open and Iran surrendered to all his demands, well, the strait remains closed. Iran says they've agreed to nothing, and the Trump administration is trying to put together another round of peace talks before this extension ends on Tuesday. And there are confusing reports about this potential second round of peace talks. The first set of contradictions came from Trump and White House officials over whether the vice president, J.D. Vance, which is not his real name, will lead the U.S. delegation again. And the second set of conflicting reports was over Iran was ever even going to attend. So over on ABC, Jonathan Karl said, Mike Waltz tells me J.D. Vance will lead the American delegation to Islamabad for talks with Iran. And then over on MS Now, reporter Jacqueline Alemany reports President Trump just told MS Now that VP Vance will not be attending due to security reasons. Delegation will be led by Witkoff and Kushner. And then on CNN, Alana Treen reports the White House tells CNN that VP Vance is traveling to Pakistan for talks in addition to Witkoff and Kushner, despite POTUS saying Vance wasn't attending. As for Trump's comments this morning saying Vance wasn't making the trip, a White House official told CNN, quote, things changed. So you could be forgiven for being confused. Over in Israel, I-24 news outlet says Iranian state media denies reports of an unexpected second round of talks with the U.S. and Islamabad, Pakistan, claiming that reports in U.S. media are part of the blame game intended to pressure Iran. Now, Iran state media says the excessive and unreasonable American demands, frequent changes of positions, and constant contradictions and the continuation of the so-called naval blockade in violation of the ceasefire agreement, along with threatening rhetoric, have so far hindered the progress of the talks. And in these circumstances, there is no clear prospect for fruitful negotiations. How about that? So that's the Iranian state media reporting. A journalist, Abbas Aslani, says Iranian sources are denying any plans for the next round of Iran and U.S. negotiations. The announcement on Tuesday for the second round of talks by U.S. and Pakistani officials is highly unusual because the Iranian side is fundamentally expressing ignorance of any such scheduling or program. Former State Department Iran expert, who a lot of people are referencing, using as a guest analyst and expert, his name is Vali Nasser, says that Iran's foreign minister Araghchi's tweet reflecting an understanding in Tehran, likely based on what they heard from Pakistan, that if they took a positive step by opening Strait of Hormuz, U.S. would reciprocate by lifting the blockade. But Trump kept the blockade in place and through his many tweets suggested that Iran was surrendering on the nuclear issue. So this has only fed Iran's suspicions about Trump that Islamabad, like Geneva, is a diplomatic ruse before another military attack. The door to diplomacy is not closed, but it has now become considerably more difficult. Deliberately or not, Trump has undermined diplomacy and raised likelihood of more war. Whew. Wow. There you go. That is the, I think, update on the confusion. Thanks to Ron Filipkowski and his aggregating over at MidasPlus.com. They do a really good job, or he does a really good job at aggregating a lot of this news and helping us sort it out. Bloomberg reporting additionally that shipping in the Strait of Hormuz was at a near standstill early Sunday after Iran reversed its decision to reopen the waterway and fired on vessels attempting to pass, warning it would block transit as long as the U.S. blockade of Iranian troops remain. The Hormuz is one of several unresolved issues in peace talks, including Iran's nuclear program and Israel's ongoing invasion of Lebanon. When asked on ABC, UN Ambassador Mike Waltz, who's disgraced, was asked, is the president really prepared to go back to full-on war? Is he prepared to destroy every power plant and bridge in Iran, like he said again? And Mike Waltz said, well, all options are on the table, absolutely. That's not a war crime. He's saying every bridge in the country, that's not a war crime. That would be an escalatory ladder. I'll see if I can play that clip for you. But then he went on CBS and said, bridges and power plants that are run by the IRGC are absolute, legitimate military targets. Not only now, but they have been historically. That is false, fake, and ridiculous notion that it is some type of war crime. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, wow. They'll say anything, they'll believe anything, and try to sell just about anything. So that is my roundup of the latest on what is happening with this war of choice in Iran and the Middle East, larger Middle East. Senator John Ossoff gave another amazing speech at a huge rally in Georgia over the weekend. I've got clips for you on that. Senator Chris Murphy went to Europe and made a speech at this pretty interesting coalition of progressive organizations in Europe and America meeting together to try to join forces. I thought that was pretty interesting. North Korea launched multiple range ballistic missiles toward the sea on Sunday, days after the UN's nuclear watchdog warned that North Korea was making serious advances in efforts to build nuclear weapons. Sunday's launches came hours before the South Korean president left the country to visit India and Vietnam. So what about the North Koreans? How come they can do that and we don't start a war with them? I thought this was interesting from conspiracy theorist, right-wing, nutjob, white supremacist, Christian nationalist, and former big-time supporter of President Trump, Alex Jones. Remember him? He said, we're supposed to just sit here and love this crap as his poll numbers go straight down. All the polls show Republicans are going to lose the midterms by a landslide. A total, complete disaster. He made some deal with the deep state to throw the elections to the Democrats. Okay. He made a deal with the deep state. Well, a new NBC poll has his ratings the lowest they've ever been. And talk more about that with Bill B in D.C. coming up. Schittler was in Phoenix, Arizona at the Turning Point USA rally as the closing act, and he couldn't even fill the Dream City Church, which said that only about 3,000 people came, which would be about 60% of capacity if you believe their numbers. Longtime supporters at the event in Phoenix said they were shocked that he couldn't fill the church. I wonder why. Pete Buttigieg went to deep red Oklahoma to give a speech before a crowd in Tulsa. So that was also pretty good. See if I can find some clips from that. 8 kids were killed in a tragic shooting in Louisiana. The suspect was the father of 7 of the children. He was killed after a vehicle chase. The slain children were 3 to 11 years old. He is apparently a veteran. One of the children apparently escaped. He jumped off the roof. The gunman also shot a woman as well as he was headed home before he killed all the kids. Just an absolutely horrific American story. In all, he shot 10 victims. And it gets worse if you read the details. And the governor there, Jeff Landry, said he was heartbroken. House Speaker Mike Johnson said it was heartbreaking and sent prayers. The suspect served in Louisiana Army National Guard from 2013 to 2020 as a signal support system specialist and a fire support specialist. He never deployed, left the Army as a private. He also had a 2019 arrest and conviction of illegal use of a firearm, which likely prohibited him from legally owning firearms. I guess that's a good thing. But anyway, just a horrific story coming out of Louisiana, just more horrific gun violence in America. The Hollywood Reporter has an interesting article I read and want to mention. The last time everyone watched the same thing about our monoculture ending in America, no one knew it at the time, but 2014 marked the peak of monoculture that no longer exists. The numbers show a long decay ever since. That was the Academy Awards in 2014, where 43 million people apparently watched, the largest audience in 14 years before that. No one knew at the time, but it feels like the last stand of a shared popular culture that no longer exists. It was that time Bradley Cooper took a selfie. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting article kind of to mention about culture. FBI Director Kash Patel is vowing to sue The Atlantic over alcohol abuse claims. Really interesting article. Talk more about that with Bill. The Department of Justice is seeking ballots and other materials from the 2024 election, and the administration is demanding ballot info from Michigan, but they rebuffed them. Michigan officials call it election interference. They're pushing back on a demand from the administration that the state provide election materials, including ballots, ballot receipts, and ballot envelopes to prove election fraud did not occur in November 2024. A strong earthquake has hit off of Japan's coast. Tsunami issue has been issued. A tsunami warning has been issued. Major 7.5 magnitude quake hitting off the coast of Japan. That's scary. That's happened just early this morning. And those are all of the headlines that I've gathered for you from the weekend. I'm sure I missed a lot of them. You can always contribute. Help me produce the show because it is just me. Email me your headlines and clip links to standupwithpete@gmail.com. That's the best way to get to them. And now here are the clips that I've gathered for you here on a Monday. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on with the Sunday shows. There was no Saturday Night Live over the weekend, but I do try to start and end the clip show with some jokes because all of this is pretty scary and shocking and depressing. I thought Colbert's Friday night monologue was on fire, particularly about the papal feud, as he refers to it, between our gross, disgusting leader, and the Pope. Take it away, Stephen.
It is yet another day when the entire world is on edge over Donald Trump's senseless and elective war with the Pope. The President of the United States has been raging at the pontiff ever since Leo brazenly pointed out war is bad. Trump's allies have been quick to jump in and defend him, like Speaker Mike Johnson, who said this about the Pope.
I was taken a little bit aback, just honestly, frankly, by something that was said. I think he said it several days back that something about those who engage in war, that Jesus doesn't hear their prayers or something. It is a very well-settled matter of Christian theology. There's something called the just war doctrine.
Correcting the Pope on Catholic theology is a little like going into the woods and saying, excuse me, Mr. Bear, do you really think this is the appropriate place for you to be pooping? Really? Who's going to clean that up? If you don't know, and you may not, just war is a Catholic doctrine that goes all the way back to the Church Fathers, St. Ambrose and St. Augustine. And there are many criteria, including it must be in self-defense once all peace efforts have failed. Only then can the war be said to have just cause, as opposed to Trump, who appears to have taken us to war just 'cause. The Pope came back. It'll work. It'll walk down the narthex. The Pope came back swinging today on social media, posting, "Woe to those who manipulate religion and the very name of God for their own military, economic, and political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth." Damn, Trump. Damn, son, the Pope just read you for darkness and filth. And the Pope wasn't done poping because today he was in Cameroon and he said the world is being ravaged by a handful of tyrants. Ooh. Handful of tyrants. That is rough. Even worse when you look at the hand. Trump's ongoing papal feud, and I love saying that sentence. Trump's ongoing papal feud has failed to distract anyone from this picture he posted of himself as Jesus. Dude, you can't compare yourself to Jesus. For one thing, Jesus' father loved him.
Oh, so good. Such a great joke and such a great chunk there at the beginning of his monologue. All right, well, we go from Colbert and some laughs to what I think are a few of the presidential candidates who are out giving speeches. Let's lead off with Jon Ossoff. He's up for re-election in the Senate. A lot of people talking about him as a possible frontrunner even for 2028. But first, he has to win re-election to the Senate. He's out there on the campaign trail in Georgia, and a lot of attention given to this speech and pretty much all of his speeches. He's a bit of a media darling, and I think I'm in on it. But I'll give you a few more and play as many clips as I can from anybody who is considering running for president. So if you see him, send him my way. I certainly am not trying to push for anybody or disproportionately play anybody, but things come up in my feed. I look hard for these clips and try to fight the algorithm, but here is Jon Ossoff in Georgia, nonetheless.
How much do you guys know about Jared Kushner? Ivanka's husband. He's on the Saudi payroll for $2 billion. Did you know that? And now he's leading American diplomacy in the Middle East, apparently while at the very same time asking princes and sheikhs across the Arab world to give him billions more. If you're watching this online, don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Can you imagine like a normal sitting U.S. ambassador just hitting up Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for billions of dollars? But he's a Trump, a royal, a princeling. The rules are for us, not for them. And it's not just Jared getting in on the action. A company owned in part by Eric and Don Jr. has been pitching Gulf kingdoms on its drone interceptors during this war. The Financial Times reported, quote, Pete Hegseth's broker looked to buy defense fund before Iran attack. I tell you what, never before have we seen so little effort to hide so much corruption. The Mar-a-Lago Mafia has taken American corruption to spectacular new heights.
Yeah, I like the way he talks, and that rowdy audience seems to as well. But here is another clip. I got two of them from that speech.
The White House told us they'd need $200 billion. 2 weeks into this war, the White House told us they'd need $200 billion to fund it. Let me just put that in perspective for you. $200 billion would fund a decade, 10 full years of nationwide universal pre-kindergarten. Instead, a war no one voted for and no one can explain. And the daily, the hourly lying to the American public about why we're at war, whether we've won, what's been agreed to. Not to mention the insane genocidal threats. Let's review the record. On day 10 of the war, the president said, quote, the war is very complete. That was day 10. That was day 10. Then day 11, going to be finished pretty quickly. Day 12, we won. Day 21, getting very close. Day 32, leaving very soon. Day 40, total and complete victory. Yesterday, Day 49, Trump said Iran had opened the strait. Except this morning, the strait was closed, and it looks like Iran hit a cargo ship.
Oh, shit. You've been Ossoffed. Let's get Buttigieg'd. Pete Buttigieg went to Deep Red, Oklahoma, and had a huge standing room only audience. And here is a question he took from that audience from a woman who was there in Tulsa, Oklahoma over the weekend.
What's your advice? We all live in Oklahoma, or a lot of us do. Lots of people that are on the other side. What's your advice to engage them when we seem to be in such echo chambers and are so divided?
Yeah, such a great question. Step one, I think, try to do it offline as much as possible. Doing it behind it. You don't even know who you're arguing with online. You know, their avatar is like a cartoon dog or something. You're like, why am I arguing with this person? But there's real people we actually know and care about, right? Who we're not in the same place politically. And the very stuff of politics, to me, is that effort at persuasion, that encounter. And if you go into that encounter with an open heart, you do it knowing that you might have some of your own values and views challenged, and that's okay. We're supposed to have to think about it a little bit. And that's why I developed this very unexpected specialty of going to places like Fox News and other conservative outlets. Because how can I blame somebody for not embracing my point of view if they've literally never even heard it, right? So I think I have a responsibility to get across those bubbles. And you don't have to be invited to go on television in order to be able to do a version of that. And I'll tell you, when I do it, I always imagine that I'm talking to people like people I grew up with, who I disagree with, and also actually like, which I think is really important too, because we've been made to feel like we just ought to be like snarling at each other and hating each other even as fellow Americans. And I think there are so many people who maybe have a different worldview than we do, but just like us, they're tired of the sense that politics is just punching you in the face every time you look at your phone or turn on the TV. Folks want out of that too. I think it helps to ask questions. And not just rhetorical questions, really ask people what they care about. Find out the things that we do, in fact, have some measure of agreement on. To never give up on each other. To appeal to things that we all share. And, you know, for some people, that's a sense of place, a connectedness to a place like Tulsa and wanting to see Tulsa do well. That's how I engaged with people who I disagreed with fiercely when I was mayor, but we all cared about the city and we wanted it to do better. For some people, I think it means talking about values, talking about faith, insisting that God does not belong to a political party in the United States of America. I'm not saying that you have one good zinger or one great conversation and everything suddenly changes for the better. I'm saying we got to do so much more in that direction. And the moment we don't even try anymore is the moment that it's all over.
Some pretty good points and advice for that woman asking how to engage people from, quote, the other side. I'm not sure if I fully agree with him, but I certainly think that it's better to do with people that you know. And some of the arguments that he's making are pretty good. We'll see if they work. Let me know. Okay, here is Tim Walz. Not, I don't think, running for president. Certainly did run for vice president, but I like this little moment, which should only come out of your left ear maybe. I don't know what happened, why it's not in stereo. Let me know.
We've got a feeble-minded, trigger-happy president who plunged us into a war where no threat was present, with no clear objectives and no exit plan. We need to call that what it is. That's fascism.
Indeed it is. Well done, Tim Walz. I don't know why I added a T. I apologize, sir. Let's head over to Chris Murphy, who was in Barcelona over the weekend, apparently at this meeting called the Global Progressive Mobilization in Barcelona. And he delivered a pretty fiery speech there, warning that American democracy is under threat, accused the president of attempting oligarchic capture, called for global progressive unity against rising authoritarianism, corporate power, what he describes as a deep crisis in modern capitalism. Very interesting speech. And Senator Murphy also, I think it's fair to say, a potential presidential contender and also probably more likely to lead the Senate in the next Congress. At least that's what I'm hearing a lot of people saying his name to replace Schumer. Here he is in Barcelona.
This is a moment, my friends, where progressives around the world have to unite. Trump, Orban, Le Pen, the AfD, the remnants of Bolsonaro, these right-wing movements, they learn from each other. They copy one another's tactics of democratic destruction, and they count on us to be divided, to argue over purity tests while they dismantle our freedoms. But to beat them, we must learn from each other, too. We have to understand how Prime Minister Sanchez, how President Lula have built big progressive coalitions all over the world. We must learn together the lessons of Hungary. Are we all committed to learning those lessons together?
All right. Well, those are some of the presidential candidates and remarks, clips from their speeches. You can go watch the whole Buttigieg, the whole Ossoff, and the whole Chris Murphy if you want more context. Just making the point that they are clips. It is the clip show. And now let's head to some media clips. And first, I thought this is interesting. This is Megyn Kelly, who is a right-wing firebrand and a full-throated Trump supporter, criticizing and friend, apparently, of Pete Hegseth. She takes responsibility in this clip for him getting the job. So she's got blood in her hands and should feel horrific shame, but she doesn't. Yet she criticizes him to whoever she was talking to on her stupid show, which is on SiriusXM and everywhere else, I guess.
I'll ask you about Pete Hegseth. I'm a fan of Pete's. I helped get him this job. He would be the first to tell you that. However, I am not a fan of the praying and the constant references to God, Jesus, and the Bible from the Pentagon while he's announcing war plans. It makes me very uncomfortable. Very. I do not think those two things belong together. I much prefer the Dan Raisin Cane approach of just the facts. The religion, obviously it's a major part of Pete's life. That's great, and I'm in favor of that. It doesn't belong when you're talking about our plans to wipe out people, including possible civilians, as President Trump continues to threaten. These two things do not belong together, and I'm really uncomfortable with it. If Joe Biden did this through his Pentagon, I would have ripped him a new one, and therefore, notwithstanding my friendship with Pete, I feel the need to register my strong objection to what he's doing. Today, he did it about, I'm going to play you the soundbite. You're going to hear a long wind-up on a religious story he told about his time in church this past Sunday. He's talking, you will ultimately learn at the end of it, I think it's beneficial to know right now, about the press. He's going to turn this whole thing, this story he's going to tell us, around on the horrible press, which is like another, like, what is he doing? You do not, in that post, bring up Jesus to rip on media from your perch at the Pentagon.
From your Pope perch. Megyn Kelly, how about that criticism? Thought that was interesting. Zohran Mamdani, the mayor of New York, was on Meet the Press over the weekend. Again, in its full interview, in full context, very interesting. But here's a clip where Kirsten Welker tries to catch him on his free grocery stores, and he gently corrects her.
TD says he can't compete with city-run grocery stores selling food for free. If private grocers start closing because of your policy, will your policy have been a failure, or do you simply see that as the cost of achieving your grocery store plan?
So I just want to correct you on one thing. These are not free groceries. These are cheaper groceries. We've always said that we would have one city-run grocery store in each borough, and they would provide cheaper groceries, and we're going to do that by guaranteeing it through a basket of essential items, the kinds of things that New Yorkers need from their grocery store, but they haven't been able to budget for. We're talking about bread and eggs, the staples that have been skyrocketing.
All right. There you go. I thought that was interesting. And also, well, there was that whole interview was. Here is Josh Rogan, national security analyst from the Washington Post on CNN over the, I think, Friday night, mentioning probably the undercovered story, which keeps happening, that somebody is shorting the market or a few people. And, well, let Rogan take over.
Somebody shorted the oil market today by hundreds of millions of dollars exactly 20 minutes before Trump made his announcement that everything was going to be great. And if you see that once, it could be a coincidence. But that's happened at least 3 times, if not more, since the war began. That's a pattern. And what that suggests is that there's rampant corruption and insider self-dealing going on with the president's up and down predictions of what's going to happen tomorrow in the negotiations and in the markets. And I'm sure that that's being investigated. We can't prove it, but it seems like the corruption that we're seeing in our government, maybe not the president, but people who are in the know, and the markets is having a priority over the actual negotiations to end the war. And that's a crazy thing that our system has never seen before. And that's
all right. There you go, Josh Rogan. How familiar are you? What do you think of Hassan Piker, the young man who is a extremely influential influencer, content creator, big on the platform called Twitch, but everywhere else, he's broken into the mainstream as well. And I think it's fair to say he's a pretty influential guy. And so here is a lightning round with him of presidential candidate hopefuls. And we shouldn't be talking about 2028 at all. We should just get through today, obviously. But I thought this was interesting, so I wanted to share it with you.
First name, Rahm Emanuel.
No, but also it sucks because he said he would come on the show. He was like defending me. And not that I want him to come on the show, but no, definitely no.
Gavin Newsom.
No.
JD Vance.
No, absolutely no. So wait, is this who I'm voting for in 2028? Like, what?
This is would you vote for it? Okay, let me tell you, based on what you know about them today, would you vote for these people in 2028?
Oh my God. JD Vance. No, I will never vote for a Republican ever.
Gretchen Whitmer.
Maybe. Now we're getting into more comfortable waters. She's too anti-Medicare for all. You know, I think she's like she's linked to the private healthcare industry, but better than others. Definitely more responsive as a governor. But I'm 50-50.
All right. AOC.
Yes.
Tucker Carlson.
No.
Cory Booker.
No. Absolutely not.
John Ossoff.
Again, interesting candidate, maybe.
Kamala Harris.
Oh, God. No.
Pete Buttigieg.
No.
Okay. Well, how do you line up with Hassan Piker and his reactions to all of those names? Do you agree? Disagree? We'll talk about it on Thursday, and you can always email me. I'd like to know what folks listening think about that guy if you're familiar with him. StandUpWithPete@gmail.com, as everything else. And here's another lightning round. Why do I have 2 lightning rounds? Why is everybody doing lightning rounds? Lightning rounds are fun. You learn a lot in a short period of time. But here is Zateo's Mehdi Hassan doing one with Senate Democratic hopeful. He's in a primary against the governor there, Janet Mills. It's Graham Plattner with Mehdi Hassan.
To see where you stand on some real issues. Would you vote in favor of a $20 minimum wage?
Yes.
Would you vote to get rid of the Senate filibuster?
Yes.
Would you vote to convict Donald Trump in an impeachment trial?
Yes.
Do you support statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico?
Yes.
Do you support Chuck Schumer for Senate Majority Leader?
No.
Do you support Hakeem Jeffries for House Speaker in 2027?
No.
Would you support a ban on assault weapons?
No.
If you go on to win your Senate seat in Maine, will you run for president in 2028?
No.
All right, so those answers, I think a lot of people will be nodding along, apart from probably the assault weapons ban question, which I think, as you know, a lot of progressives will disagree with you on and say it's a major issue that helps prevent mass shootings. What would you say to them?
I think in a country that's already awash in guns, we have 20 to 30 million AR-15s in America. We don't actually know how many. Restricting access to people with a violent history or people who are going to commit a violent act, that is where we're going to see the most effect. And I support universal background checks, and I support red flag laws, like the one that Maine passed by ballot measure overwhelmingly last November. I think that those combined with expanding mental health services across the board as part of a much more substantial healthcare system and using the power of the federal government to elevate people out of poverty, I think holistically when we think about gun violence, that's where we're going to get the most reduction.
Okay. All right. 2 lightning rounds And those are the clips that I've got for you here on a Monday. Hopefully you liked it, and I don't have another comedy clip. I'm running out of time. I came up against the deadline. I want to get it posted. But I do have this great conversation with Bill Boyle for you now. If you were up and subscribed to my YouTube or my Substack, you probably got an alert last night. If not, subscribe now at Stand Up with Pete. But we were live last night at 8 p.m. I'll be live again at 10:30 a.m. with Dr. Andrea Jones-Roy at 10:30 a.m. But here now is my conversation with one of our favorites, Bill B. in D.C. You should follow him on Blue Sky. If you're in D.C., you should look him up. He is a business owner. He runs parking garages down there. He doesn't have the incentive or motivation to be a commentator, and that's partially why he's one of our favorites. Always great to get his perspective. That's what we did. Let's do it. Always happy to see you. I try to get you on Sunday nights these days, given the war, and it's just always fun to kick off the week with you, look a little back, and just shoot the shit. Thank you for joining me on your Sunday night. I know you had a busy day outdoors in D.C. because your son is a ultimate Frisbee player. And go ahead and say what you said to me off the air about what ultimate Frisbee.
I said ultimate Frisbee is the sport you have your kid do when your kid can't do sports. Like it's active, they run around, they do whatever. But, there's not high stakes in ultimate Frisbee. Let's put it that way. No one cares if you go to like when somebody bumps somebody else, they stop and apologize.
Yeah.
Right. Like they have like a circle of truth at the end where people give each other like ups, like, hey, I want to give so-and-so ups because he really hustled during this game. Like,
is that right?
They play like they like each other, which feels very un-American to me. But yeah, it's a very, it's a stoner sport. Let's be honest. This is a teen, parent run thing. So there's not a lot of weed floating around, but the vibe is really baked, really baked.
Wow. I've never been around the game, and I'm really shocked at your depiction of the culture, at least whether it be youth or adult. I didn't realize that was the case with either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the great team from San Francisco back in the day was called Double Happiness, which was a rolling paper brand. So bit of a tip-off.
That is hilarious. Well, it's good to learn. I wasn't expecting to learn about that.
Well, you know how much I hate hippies, so it's kind of funny. Like my kid is doing the ultimate hippie sport.
No, I don't know how much you hate hippies. And what is a hippie and why do you hate them?
So hippies are boomers, and I hate boomers as well often. And I come from like the 70s and 80s punk era where, you had all these people around who were like, when we were kids who were all like, dude, I'm listening to Terrapin Station and the Dead. And then like 4 years later, they were like stockbrokers and have become the most toxically conservative people in American society. So, boomers generally like got a lot out of American society and were indulgent and obnoxious as kids and now are enormously indulgent and obnoxious as adults in the political sense.
God, I love that analysis of that group of people. Boy, yeah. I had not quite heard it put that way. It resonates. You've just, I feel like, put words to the way a lot of us feel about our parents' generation. It's a very specific, I think, group of people, but there's a lot of kind of hypocrisy and contradiction in the way that they ended up living their lives. And more importantly, what they got out and didn't necessarily put back in is something that is almost generational wide.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, boomers like really sort of felt like a lot was owed to them and a lot was really given to them. They had cheap college relatively. They had, yes, they had the Vietnam War, which was fucking awful. No question. But, they lived in like this really amazing time of prosperity and liberal ascendancy in America. And then when they got older, they've been and you see it in things like NIMBYs and you see it in things like how people, vote against go to any town and the people that really vote against raising taxes for schools are the people who went to school in the era where the highest percentage of taxes were paid by most jurisdictions for their schools.
Well, that's more of a full generalization of the generation, but you also said hippies, which is a more specific person in the 60s.
I mean, so hippies sort of, I think there's a lot of bullshit in the vibe about hippies. And I have done, work like around sort of like big like, fish style 3 or 4 day events. And the people that run these things often are very patchouli accented and yet are rapacious capitalists as much as anything else. And they're sort of this, I just think there's a lot of bullshit in the vibe and I don't love it.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I think I prefer my shitty people to be upfront shitty people, not to try to pretend it's all peace and love and all that other bullshit.
Fair enough. Yeah. Arne Arneson in the chat. They happily pulled the ladder up after they got ahead. Did they do it happily?
Oh, they definitely did it. I mean, I don't know how happy they were, but and that's the sort of the problem with them is they're never happy, right? Like if I had grown up in the 60s with all that you could, if you go to University of California, if you were in state for like $60 a credit hour or something, like pretty amazing stuff that they had. And yet like, they're the people who vote against, they all voted, a lot of them voted for Reagan. And as they got older, they became more and more conservative, and they're Trump's best voting bloc.
I'm pretty proud of my parents from this analysis because my parents really aren't like that,
No, yeah, this is a generalization to be very clear.
No, it is. It is. It's certainly a group of people, but I'm just thinking about, it obviously is my parents' generation, but my parents were always anti the Vietnam War, number one, but more importantly, they don't vote conservative. My dad's more conservative than my mom's very, very liberal, but they more than anything else, I feel like what you're saying is they understand that things like I've had these conversations with both my parents about simply the cost of college, the cost of living then versus now. Like they fully understand it. They fully understand that. And it's inexcusable in my opinion to not see it. It's the data's all clear and so on. So it's always rough when they're casting judgment on us or our kids even.
And I got to tell you, like, I think I kind of get millennials can be very annoying, but I also understand that they have challenges that my generation, I mean, if you grew up in the 70s and early 80s, it was fairly crappy actually. Economically, socially, whatever. It was pretty bad. But millennials also had a pretty like kids now who went through, if you were a very young kid and your world starts out with 9/11 and then sort of is bookended by COVID and Trump.
And the financial collapse affected them.
And the financial collapse of 2008. I mean, that really sucks.
Yeah,
even though millennials I find in the work world to be pretty annoying, I also am sympathetic because I know that they've not had a great deal.
I think we can move on past this, but I'll just add to that, whether they're millennial or Gen Z, I have very little judgment of them because, and I have mostly sympathy for them because of what you just said about millennials for sure. But with Gen Z and growing up with screens and all that comes with them, like we so often talk about what it used to be like to them. But they'll never understand it. They never had a choice to really understand it. And I think my daughters recognize that things for them are not as good as they were for me at their age pretty acutely. But also we can't possibly understand what it's like to be them. And that's where I just generally start and end. I'm a judgmental motherfucker, but about their generation, I just feel like it's very hard given the circumstances of what they're dealing with. Our kids versus us? Come on.
Yeah, well, I mean, we also grew up, or especially me, grew up in a generation where people drank far more at a very young age. They did way more drugs. Everybody smoked. I was one of the few who didn't smoke.
Yeah.
Teenage pregnancy was 71% higher, 81% higher. Like we grew up, and especially, I think you're a little younger than me, but my God, it was like a wild, crazy drug and alcohol fueled era. And I mean, I did have a lot of fun, to be fair, but I think there's ups and downs between, say, Gen X, Gen Z, millennials. Like there's things that are a lot better for them, that are much healthier than they were for us. I mean, people freak out about screens, but my God, I mean, I knew people in high school that OD'd on heroin. Like,
yeah, no, I mean, I used to
do a rich suburb of New Jersey.
I used to do jokes in my act about how much more dangerous life was.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And then there's no doubt about that, simply from the standpoint, I think my first joke was just screaming, we didn't have helmets.
Oh, and everybody drank and drove. Right?
I don't disagree with that, but I don't remember drinking. Alcohol and drugs were not a big part of my life at all. And in my adolescence, all my friends drank and did drugs, but as a result of my brother's early usage, I chose not to until I was 21. And so I don't know. I think I matured I didn't get frozen in time by that stuff.
We're about 10 years apart, and I think that 10 years is a big difference.
For sure.
When I was in high school is when the first Mothers Against Drunk Driving and everything, that all blew up when I was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, we definitely had a lot of, I knew 2 kids, one of which was one of my closest friends, but we were 20 by that point who died drinking and driving. But certainly it was all of those statistics were a lot higher and by so many metrics. So there are trade-offs and so on, but I wish things were still the way they were then. Not by the standpoint of these dangers, but certainly from the standpoint of technology, social media, and just late stage capitalism, climate. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get all of that. Yeah, I mean, it's some things are better, some things are a lot worse.
Yeah.
But it's not, and that's the comparison to boomers, where boomers kind of had everything better.
I'd love to hear of a whole bunch of other voices in this in a future conversation. I'm sure a lot of people watching now and then listening on the pod will have things to say. Let's get to the news. The news. The Strait of Hormuz news you can use is the Colbert bit. We can start there in Iran with the latest. It is a crazy and funny, if it wasn't so horrible, timeline to see the social media posts of our president, to see the reactions of the Iranian regime each day. Yeah. And I think one of the things that really seems to be hard, Bill, that I think we're all struggling with, is it's very hard to get accurate reporting, because one hand in the government literally doesn't seem to know what the other one is doing. I'm not even getting to Iran. So whether Iran's telling the truth or whether the U.S. is telling the truth about negotiations or about actions in the Strait, it feels to me that you should be forgiven for being confused, because even the journalists on the ground, much less that are the best sourced, are confused because there's lying, there's inaccuracy, and there's a lack of communication. Is that right? Is that my read accurate, or?
Well, no, I think there is, but not for the reasons you think. I don't think that most of the media is super confused about what's going on. I think that the media is in a, don't excuse the pun, but a straitjacket on how they report these things, because they sort of seem to be stuck in this idea that they have to take Trump seriously at all. And so when the administration says everything's cool, it's all done, the media reports it that way. And then where Iran hasn't agreed to anything, and then they hit a tanker, and the media is sort of well, it seems like Iran might have broken the agreement that might have existed. The media bends over backwards over itself to try to somehow make what the White House is doing look coherent when it's not. And I can tell you there's a really easy solution if you're worried about not understanding what's happening. There's an organization called the Institute for the Study of War. You can go on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, ISW, and they put out reports every other day or so on Ukraine, on Iran, Strait of Hormuz, a couple of other things. And they summarize, here's what the Iranians are saying, here's the Americans are saying, here's what's actually happening on the ground. And if literally they put out a report that's 5 paragraphs every couple of days. And it is totally factual, no bullshit, no axe to grind about anybody. And when you read that, I just read it preparing for this on Iran. It just lays it out for you. This is what's happening. And I read almost no mainstream media about any of this stuff, because their reporting is it's so bad. Again, because their agenda is to engender excitement and keep people reading, or to try to avoid the White House stepping on their private parts for violating some sort of, confidence or trust, or to keep access or whatever. Most of the media reporting is crap because it wants to be, because that's the market it's in. It looks like you pulled it up.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
It's awesome. It's maps. It shows you what's happening. And what's happening right now, and ISW talks about it, is the Iranian Republican Guards have completely taken control of the negotiating. Yeah, this is it. And the IRGC basically is in control of those negotiations that are going to happen in Islamabad. And all those negotiations are about is about extending the ceasefire. Iran is not going to break on anything. They're going to continue maximalist demands because they're in a position to. And the White House is full of it if they think they're going to get anywhere in the situation they're
in. It's still pretty confusing as to where we're at, especially because, I mean, a lot of people look at the metrics of markets and the price of oil and base a lot on that. Markets had record highs 2 days in a row last week. And it seems like oil has come down precipitously. So if you're looking at day-to-day benchmarks, and you probably shouldn't, but if you are, that one is a piece of data that seems to add to confusion. Thoughts?
But it's data about the perceptions and expectations of investors. It's not data that actually accurately describes very much what's happening.
Well,
we live in a weird.
It's true of the market, but I don't know if that's true of the cost of a barrel of oil, which gets priced more on supply and demand than on speculation.
No, but that is speculation, actually, that people are putting money in on the price of oil. And what's ridiculous is oil is trickling out barely at all from the Strait of Hormuz. So when you see those price fluctuations, that's actually both in oil price and in stock. Those are speculations completely. And they're completely irrational, by the way. There is no solution to this. The solution to the oil famine we're going through right now has not been enacted. And I don't think we're anywhere close to the Strait of Hormuz being open. And we're really now hitting where all of the tankers that had left the Strait of Hormuz have gotten to their destinations now. And so now you're really going to start to see the pinch start to hit. And those price drops in oil were absurd in many ways because there's just is there more oil in the market now than there was 3 days ago? No, there isn't. There's less. So there's no reason rationally for those prices to have gone down.
Do you think the price of oil is going to spike back up?
Of course, because as you say, the supply hasn't changed, hasn't gone up.
So do you think that Trump and his declaration that the strait is open and things like it's just going to go away and the war, do you think that is confusing his base as well as everybody else? It's less confusing for those of us who have seen him and covered him and live on Earth One, who understand that he's the biggest liar in the world and has no idea what he's doing and always does the same shit, which is ignore the problem, say I'll have a plan in 2 weeks, and then just the king of kicking that can all the way down the road. But that's not really an option so much right here. It's a barrel of oil. You can't kick it too far. He's not in control of it. And I just wonder if everybody in America and around the world sees him for who he is, a charlatan and a con artist, or if it even matters. I mean, I guess there's no B. That's my.
Yeah. I mean, I think that
more credibility, whatever credibility he had with anyone based on this.
Well, his approval rating at NBC just went down to 37%.
Right. Lowest ever.
Yeah. And I think that there's nothing holding it up anymore except basically the same sort of sentiment that let oil prices drop the other day. Like the people who are still into Trump, they're invested emotionally in it. He is their orange Jesus, and most of them are going to stay with him no matter what because they're happy to believe the bullshit. I mean, if you voted for Trump in the first place, you're already prone to believing bullshit.
Right.
And so, they're going to stick. I know people who are telling me, oh, you don't understand. This is like last week telling me this is a grand strategy that's really going to work. And if you're still at this point, kidding yourself, you're not going to change. You're going to stick with believing this because you've got emotional reasons to believe it.
Let me shift gears a little bit. I saw this post that you reshared on Blue Sky. If you're not following Bill, you should. He's great. He has his great own original stuff. He always shares really smart stuff, including this one. He's at Bill B in DC, by the way. from David Simon, who we love. He writes a quote about a video of Mamdani with Obama, which if you haven't seen it, you should go watch it because it's wonderful and inspiring and just really just great. Go watch President Obama and Mayor Mamdani with a bunch of kindergarten kids. And around that video, David Simon writes, win or lose, there remains a real measure of promise and decency in America that is worth the fight. And win or lose, there is no dignity for any of us unwilling to have that fight. I loved it. I stood and applauded that. And then I go and I see in the chat, and our friend Aaron the farmer says, this is the death knell of the American century. And I think Kevin Richburg would say certain similar things, and maybe Jared Yates Sexton and others. And I don't think it says as much about them as it does about their view of the, and I think Simon's leaving open for the possibility, and I think you do, and I think I do as well, that things will continue to get worse. But in this case, it seems like that there, as he says, does remain a real measure of promise and decency in America that's worth the fight. And when you think about, fantasize about a ticket with John Ossoff and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on it, I don't care who's on the top or bottom, or a couple of other folks, but certainly people like them.
Yeah.
And then you look at what happened in Hungary, and you do look at what happened in New York. The reason Mamdani won is in large part because of him. And certainly that's true of Trump. And obviously he ran a great campaign. He surrounded himself with amazing people. And from what I can tell and what I read about New York, and it's a lot, he's doing really good things real quickly and following through. And he's got most of the people with him because most of the folks are working class, and these are policies that benefit us. So what do you think about like just the general prognostication of the future of America and the pronunciation of our early death?
Well, I mean, I think that certainly American hegemony around the world has been very badly damaged.
Is that a bad thing?
Yes, it's a bad thing because American hegemony kept a lot of conflicts bottled up. And when, what's the line from the Gramsci, the Italian political guy, said, when the old order is done and the new order is working to be born, that is the time of monsters. And that is when the really horrible thing happens. And Gramsci was talking about when a state,
the old world is dying and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters.
That's right. And
he was talking imprisoned by Benito Mussolini's fascist regime.
He was killed by them, I believe. Yeah. Certainly imprisoned by them. But the point being that when an old hegemony starts to break apart, and he was talking, by the way, about the hegemony within a state, but it's equally applicable to like a global hegemony, where when things come unstuck, all these, look at, for instance, Yugoslavia. When the Cold War ended, the glue that held Yugoslavia together evaporated, and you had absolute massacre and mayhem and terrible things. And that's what's going to happen globally unless the U.S. somehow manages to salvage some of its ability to control things. Now, that being said, the U.S. has gigantic advantages. It's got geographic advantages, strategic advantages, economic advantages. It's very possible that this is an interlude. Britain, when it lost the American colonies, everyone was like, holy crap, Britain's screwed now. And then Britain went on to become even bigger and greater after that. So I don't count America out. I think America, you and I have talked about this before, is effectively a state that was founded on a revolution to overthrow autocracy. And it was founded on small r Republican values, small d Democratic, small l liberal values. And I think that culturally is still running in our blood. I think that we're in an era of, social media and all these other things that really sort of threw off the course we normally would have gone on. But I think that the kind of people that throw the Caesarism that creates, which is Trump, it doesn't create people who can govern very well or even have a particularly coherent philosophy that's going to appeal to enough people that they can really redirect the course of the United States. And I think after Trump, there's going to be a lot of lustration. I think there's going to be a lot of real soul searching, and I think there's going to be a lot of people going to jail. And I think I think that there's going to be.
That would mean for the first time in our lifetime, there would be accountability for.
Well, there was a lot of accountability pre-Trump era, not 100%, and it was certainly not as,
what entity or scandal or crisis.
Look at the Enron guys; a lot of them went to jail.
White collar criminals definitely were persecuted in many cases, but the Enron scandal was a ripple effect that affected the economy, right? But more than anything else, I think it affected the industries and probably caused certain corrections and regulations. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about from the end of World War II. I'm talking about Vietnam. I'm talking about the Iraq wars, the 2008 crisis, 9/11.
Vietnam was a stupid war that was legally fought. And there was not – I'm talking – where I'm saying that, accountability – pre-Trump, if you said I'm going to grab somebody by the pussy, you were out of politics permanently.
Okay, yeah, he broke everything. Yeah.
This isn't necessarily people like getting arrested and going to jail.
But okay,
this is like you're done as your career as a politician just ended today. And this country was quite harsh in that respect.
We can quote some extent on the history of accountability with this country. We probably ended in probably a similar place. But what you're saying is that you think there will be some. With whoever takes over, and hopefully that happens, because we still there's still questions. Listen, Trump's not going anywhere, right? Like, unless he gets thumped the way that Orban did, and it's so overwhelming, he can't pull off a big lie. But he's going to try to pull off some type of a big lie, some type of the election was rigged, however he.
Yeah, but I think that Orban's example is instructive and hopeful for us. Orban had far greater control of the Hungarian state than Trump does of the United States. He had far greater control. He had far greater control of media. He had far greater economic control. He had, you couldn't literally get on TV if you were Magyar. Couldn't get on TV, period, in Hungary to campaign. Like, that's all. Imagine the United States with the Democrats literally just not allowed on television. So if Magyar can win under those conditions in Hungary, Democrats can very definitely win in the United States, and will, by the way. Democrats are going to crush in November. They're going to crush. I think it's going to be 35, 40 seats in the House.
Yeah.
I think that the Senate is going to probably be 50-50, but there's a very strong chance it's going to be 51-49 in the Democrats' favor. And if either of those happen, especially if we get the House and the Senate together, though, we're in a whole different world. And Trump is going to spend the last 2 years trying to break things and having Congress very actively stopping it.
You can't see whatever Democrats are in leadership. It's now, by the way, becoming a litmus test for Democrats running in primaries, like Graham Plattner had to answer, and I'll have this clip on the show. Mehdi's Hassan from Zateo was asking him a lightning round, and he asked him, would you support Schumer for leadership? No. Would you support Hakeem Jeffries? No. And that litmus test is being applied to other Democratic primaries. And more importantly, whoever wins in November, if Democrats take over the House and the Senate, what you're saying is that they will not be able to maintain their support amongst the base if they don't hold Trump's cronies and
that's correct
corrupt criminals responsible. If they don't have hearings, if they don't do oversight, if they don't have prosecutions, which they won't have, I guess they won't have the jurisdiction to do prosecution. But
what they'll do is Trump wants to fight a war in Iran, and the House and Senate vote and say no, you can't. Can't spend any money on it. And then if Trump, here's the thing, like, people are going to go, well, Trump will just do it anyway. Except that Trump, if he does that, and he's doing this, by the way, at the Forest Service, where they are totally breaking the law by basically taking everyone out of the Forest Service. You make them break the law openly. That's super important. You even if you're not stopping them, you're making it clear to every voter they're breaking the law. And that actually is
the Epstein files. They pass a law. You have to release the Epstein files.
And it makes it impossible for everyone, even Trump people. You say, look, there's a law and they're ignoring it. And making them openly break the law actually helps to beat them, because voters don't like it. You go look at all the polling on this stuff. Voters really don't like that. And that is the way to get them, to make them illegitimate, right? Like, that is a key thing. You need to illegitimize Trump and his people in government forever. And you first make them defy the law if they're going to. And then when they do that, when they lose elections, you're in a position to reverse all the things they were doing. Right? Oh. They got rid of the Forest Service. Well, sorry, fuck off. That was illegal. We're bringing it right back.
Right. Yeah. Well, that particular issue, I think, is not going to pass muster in federal court. The few other things I'd certainly want to ask you about this past week. The Atlantic magazine had a really credible, well-sourced story from a reporter named Sarah Fitzpatrick about Kash Patel. Says the FBI director is MIA. He's alarmed colleagues with episodes of excessive drinking and unexplained absences. I think it's that reporting that also said that he freaked out last week because he couldn't get into his computer and he thought he'd been fired, which is just that is an overreaction and a paranoia that the person in that job should not have, and says a lot about him and his inability to, and he notified a bunch of people, like let a bunch of people. And then it was like, oh no, oh, I'm sorry. It was a technical issue. He put in the wrong password, or it wasn't his fault, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Or he was wasted trying to do it.
Maybe he was drunk. The article goes into his excessive drinking. They had to break down a door. They couldn't get a hold of him, and he was drunk in the room, apparently. He is now threatened to sue the Atlantic. We'll see how that works out. Yeah. But you know that reporting is accurate, because the Atlantic would never have printed that and made themselves. And generally big news outlets don't make themselves vulnerable. Their reporting is uncontrovertible in this point, I would argue, without knowing exactly. But what are your thoughts about Patel and the FBI?
He lives down the hill from me, actually, and I've got a funny story that I cannot tell you because I don't want to reveal where he lives. And precisely, let's just say he's got really shite taste in real estate. Okay. But the thing about him is that this is a classic Trump guy, and that Trump doesn't want somebody good at the FBI. He wants somebody that is terrified of being fired every day. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want a guy like Mueller who would say, "Oh, you're going to fire me? Knock yourself out." Like, he wants a supine, paranoid weirdo who does all this like social media bullshit, because Trump doesn't really care about the security of the country. He wants to use the FBI to fuck with his enemies, and that's kind of it. You know, they've taken all the people at the FBI, or not all of them, but a great majority of them, who are working on counterterrorism, and move them into other things like tracking down illegal immigration, right? Like or to like bullshit electoral vote challenges. They do not care about if the organization is effective, except at buttressing Trump's ego and weird impulses. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you saw him at the hockey game, just like drunk, screaming with, a bunch of hockey players when the U.S. won. And I just think, to me, none of it's surprising in the least. His lawsuit's going to lose. And Patel probably will, in some enormously humiliating way, get fired at some point.
There's reporting he's going to be fired this week.
Yeah. I mean, I could see Trump just casting about and saying, "Okay, I'm in trouble." Trump is really in trouble in Iran. He has set off a crisis that he can't walk away from, and so he's going to start to look for other ways to exercise his power and to divert attention. And what's a good way to do that? Fire Kash Patel. Bring in Tom Homan to run FBI, right? Like, move chairs around, the deck of the Titanic so people don't notice the ship is sinking. That's what we're going to see. I bet you Tulsi Gabbard's going to get fired, by the way. I bet Hegseth is going to go at some point. And I think Kash Patel certainly goes as well.
What do you make of our former friends and allies lack of support and the way they're carrying it out vis-a-vis our war of choice in Iran?
Well, the UAE, a very prominent guy in the UAE today said that the alliance with the United States is now a burden rather than a benefit. And so the UAE should move on from being allied to the U.S. That tells you the UAE just lived for, totally dependent on our support. And I think that what's happening is that our allies are being smart and reasonable because we're not acting like an ally. We're not acting like an ally. Like, you don't, this isn't, this is the real world. This is no bullshit. And there's real dangers that attach to the U.S. doing crazy things and you going along with it and getting pulled into the party. Iran, UAE, Saudi, all these countries are having to deal with being attacked on a war that benefits them in no way at all. If it hurts them, and that even if the U.S. quote unquote wins, doesn't benefit them either. So if you're them, why be allies with someone who's trying to ruin you? It's idiotic.
By the way, right now, I believe this guy Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the Prince of America, and J.D. Vance, the Vice President,
yes,
are I'm confused whether or not are supposed to be negotiating with Iran through Pakistan. Maybe either way,
they're going to be in Islamabad, Pakistan. J.D. Vance Trump said he wasn't going, and then an hour later he was going, and I'm assuming he's going to lecture the Iranians about just war theory when he gets there.
So I saw this diplomat, I think, on TV talking about, hey, it's not that unorthodox to have someone from outside the government who the president in this case trusts to negotiate. And I think, I can think of like a George Mitchell and then Howard Baker after he was gone, I think got brought back in and the sides negotiating knew that these guys were trusted folks. But he then made the point, but those people, he didn't name them, I am, those people knew what they were doing.
That's right.
And these guys don't. And what he didn't say, what I would add is, but those people weren't corrupt and self-interested. Like it would seem that the accusation, and I like reporting and data, but I think there is some, is that, or the insinuation is that Witkoff and Kushner are negotiating for themselves, for them to enrich themselves and obviously Trump and his family, not necessarily for America or what is in the best interest of America. We know Kushner and Witkoff have done this and made literal deals already for the billions of dollars in their favor. But it just say, anything you want about that.
Sure. So yes, sometimes outsiders are brought in. They tended to be ex-secretaries of state, ex-secretaries of defense, ex-diplomats. These are people who knew what the hell they were doing and were subject matter experts. But those guys also was they would bring actual subject matter experts with them. And famously, Witkoff and Kushner, when they were talking to the Iranians just before this war started, were talking about the Iranian nuclear weapons program, but didn't bring any, in fact, told the nuclear weapons experts not to come.
Why?
Well, because who the fuck knows? Like, these guys are completely confident of their ability to do things and are complete morons. And they see experts. This is MAGA writ large. The same people who think that doctors are lying to you about vaccines think that nuclear weapons policy guys are lying to you about what's possible with Iran.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right? And I'll tell you what's pretty wild is that what I have been hearing a little bit is that Kushner is actually the best of the bunch. Like he actually seems to understand, you've got your interests, we've got our interests, let's figure something out. The Ukrainians are actually like, we'd kind of rather have Kushner around because Witkoff is such an absolute moron. But Kushner, at least you can talk to, and he seems to have the brain power to like have a reasonable discussion. But these guys
is about Vance on this is that he never thought this was a good idea. And if he's there, it's more likely there would be a de-escalation than an escalation. Do you buy that?
No, I mean, I think what's happening is these guys are going to go there and they're going to say to the Iranians, we want a total package deal. You can't have nukes for 20 years. The strait's open, blah, 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 blah. And the Iranians are going to say, we're here to talk about extending the ceasefire, and that's it. That's it. And there's not, the Iranians are in the stronger position. Because if the U.S. blockades the Strait of Hormuz, guess what? The Gulf is still closed. For Iran, the Gulf being closed hurts the U.S. more than it hurts Iran. So Iran is in a position to just shrug and say, okay. And by the way, the guys that are being sent by Iran have no negotiating power. The IRGC has apparently consolidated its control over this process. The Iranian Republican Guard Corps have consolidated their power over the negotiating process, and they are giving their emissaries no room to change anything. They've been told in Iran, this is what you can offer, and you cannot change it. So what are Vance and these guys going to negotiate? They're going to negotiate with people who don't have the power to change anything. And so a ceasefire is about as good as anything you're going to get out of this, and that ceasefire won't last.
Last thing I want to ask you, it's kind of out of left field for people watching, but you and I'd reached out to you earlier. I saw someone post earlier that they don't believe. Oh, it was Marjorie Taylor Greene was asking questions about the attempted assassination of Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, in the summer of 25.
Yeah. 24.
She has questions about it. It feels like everybody I know has questions about it. I feel like a lot of smart people I know. I feel like most listeners of my show don't believe the official story. I have questions, like I always do, about things. Particularly, my main question is where I would like to see a picture. I would like to know the specificity of his injury, and I would like to see a picture of it. But that's my only real question. I don't buy the conspiracies around it for lots of reasons. And so I wanted to ask you if you had what questions you had around the attempted assassination. And what you said basically in short in a text was, I don't buy any of it because extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. That was what you said to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's so tempting for folks to say, man, if Trump had not survived that assassination attempt, if that assassination attempt had not been made and Trump didn't have this amazing visual of him holding his ear bleeding and sticking his fist up, that Harris could have beaten him. And I think that's probably true. But that being said, does anyone really think that the Trump people found this mentally unbalanced kid, got him on that roof, told the Secret Service to stay away from him, and told the local police to stay away from him, and trusted this kid to nick Trump's ear in order to win the election? Does anyone really think that it would be in any way possible to keep that secret? It's not.
Or to pull it off.
Right. How do you identify this kid? Once you get into the sort of bare bones of how you would actually do it, how do you find this mentally unbalanced kid? How do you make sure that he gets killed in the shootout afterwards? How do you, right? All of these things are incredibly difficult to do, and they're even more difficult to do and have it actually be kept secret. It's incredibly difficult to do it, and it's super fucking unlikely that it happened. Trump just, like a lot of creepy dictators, Adolf Hitler survived 3 or 4 assassination attempts that 100% should have killed him. And he's sort of the one in the Wolf's Lair where the German high command tried to kill him, or some of them did. The bomb was put near Hitler under this table. There was a thick wooden leg to the table, the conference table. Instead of putting the bomb on this side of the leg, the bomber put it on this side of the leg, which meant that the table leg absorbed most of the explosive force going towards Hitler, and Hitler survived. Now, with Trump, it's like saying that the guys who tried to kill Hitler intentionally missed and put it on the wrong side of the chair, or of the table leg, right? These things happen all the time. Some guy tried to put a bomb in a cuckoo clock to kill Hitler, and it went off early. There's just so many imponderables. There's so many weird bounces, everything else. You just can't do this stuff.
We know about all those things. That's the point. We know what happened in all of these things because you can't hide it. And what happens in modern media and culture is same thing with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. People put out a video.
Yeah.
They edit it all up and without even changing anything, they highlight things and say, look, in the assassination attempt of Trump, for example, the Trump admin people like usher the photographers all into the right spot to get the shot. The crane operator lowers the flag. And I look at that and go, what? So the crane operator was in on it? Exactly. The guy lowered the flag to get the flag in the picture. He wasn't already prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it is so, to me, preposterous that anyone buys these videos. Look at the bulk in his shirt. That's where,
Why do people buy it? They buy it because they want to.
Right.
Because it creates meaning. It gives meaning to meaningless events. You probably remember Loose Change, the movie about 9/11.
Oh my God, do I? That movie had such a profound effect on me before I bought it. I didn't buy it, but it was really convincing. It's well done for its time.
Yeah, and by the way, there were things like this about the Kennedy assassination in the 60s and 70s. Like, this is it's just that it's all been supercharged by the media or by the internet in our era. Yeah. But this stuff has always been this way, and the world is full of unjust, shitty outcomes that come from random events. And do most people really want to believe that those random events don't have meaning and it's just sort of what happened? Or do they want to believe that there was some agency and on some level that if next time around they might have agency to stop it? Of course people want to believe that. It's natural, it's normal, and unfortunately it's totally wrong.
I fully agree with you, by the way, just in case there was any question. Well, okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining me on a Sunday night. I really appreciate your insights, as always. We all do. And thanks for everybody watching live. Wow, 127 people.
That's great. That's great. Well, and everybody, prayer for Rod Dreher on his new career in Vienna now that he's being tossed out of Hungary.
You're obsessed with this guy, Rod Dreher, this conservative columnist.
He's such a gigantic creep, and he's such a fake intellectual and a weirdo, and he really epitomizes everything about MAGA so well. He's awesomely bad.
And he's an American guy who went and lived in Hungary and propagandized for Hungary.
Got paid $100,000 a year by the Hungarian government to, say how great Orban was and how American politics should be more like this, et cetera, et cetera. And just he hook, line, and sinkers the dumbest possible, bullshit about the enemies of Trump and whoever. He's smart enough to admit that Trump is terrible, but dumb enough to still think Trump is better than the alternative.
So if you didn't know who Rod Dreher was and you see his name come up, now you know what to think.
Now I would suggest people follow the hilarious downfall of Rod Dreher. It's pretty great.
Where's that?
Oh, just go Google him. Go and just follow his social media feed is full of.
You're just saying follow in general.
It's so entertaining. It's so I know people who are fairly well known people in DC who just spend time tossing tweets at Rod Dreher just to see him crash and burn over them.
That sounds fun. Great. Sounds satisfying.
It is very. Yeah.
All right. There we go. We shot on Rod Dreher, and that feels good. And I really appreciate you and everybody watching. Thank you. Good night. Be the change you want to see, and support me on patreon.com/Pete Dominic. Thank you, Bill. Go follow Bill right now on Blue Sky and Threads. Bill B.
Not on Threads, just Blue Sky.
Oh, I thought you were on Threads.
I might have a Threads account, but I never use it. So.
You should. It's fun over there. Bill
If
B.
you want to follow me on Threads, though, please do. You just will never see me. So.
Oh, well, you should get over there. You should get over
there. If you want a low pressure Threads follow, I'm your man.
All right, bud. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
And that is it. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you for listening, for pressing play, for being here, for supporting this podcast, which is daily with a paid subscription. If you're not, please do it. Sign up now. You can pay more if you're getting more. If you're listening every day, patreon.com/Pete Dominic. If you want to give me a bonus or a tip on Venmo, there should be a link in every day's show notes and more information about the guests. And you can write a rating and review, please, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which is the main two places people listen. And that's it. That's all I've got for you, bumblebees. Thank you for being here. Hope to see you at the 10:30 live or any other time. And, of course, at our hangout this week. Should be a good week. Have a lot of women joining me this week that we love, and I'm looking forward to talking to you. So thank you very much for being here. John Carroll writes and performs all the music here. Go support him at johncarroll.org, and I will talk to you right here tomorrow.
To let in some light, you gotta stand up. That's right. You got to rise up. You got to stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense and you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town, just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change would begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and